I've just explored the most baffling political debate I've ever witnessed. It's particularly a black issue, but it's also an issue that affects all of America. I've delved into the frequently cited criticisms of Dr. Cornel West, especially those regarding his critiques of President Obama. By the end, you'll gain a deeper understanding of true power, the kind that empowers us all. Moreover, you'll come to recognize greed, the pitfalls of self-serving motives, and how easily we can lose our way. Yesterday was Obama's birthday. He turned 62. This gives us a perfect time to have this conversation. Most of what you know about Cornel West's criticism of Obama is particularly one-sided. I've read Michael Eric Dyson's critiques in The New Republic. I've read Touré's in The Time, and many other authors across different publications. His beef with Melissa Harris Perry, his disagreements with Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, several others. Many of the reasonable reasons that Cornel West criticized Obama are hidden. For instance, did you know that Dr. Cornel West attended 65 campaign events to support then-Senator Barack Obama? 65.
Arthur Davis, we were all in a room, and we worked for 2 days. And so I became a critical supporter, and that was the first time I met him there in Washington. And I met him again in South Carolina when I was doing a number of events. But I ended up doing about 65 events all around the country, beginning with Iowa and ending up in Ohio, those crucial states.
65 times. Just think of it. Has anyone ever helped you move more than once or twice? Helped you out of financial bind 65 times? What I'm trying to say, folks, is that obviously Dr. Cornel West was a deep supporter of Barack Obama, an ardent supporter. He toured with him. When you take a casual look at the history between Cornel West and Obama, you only find out about two of them. Two. One was a fundraiser event at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, November 29, 2007, where West called Obama my brother, companion, and comrade. The other was a rally in Los Angeles on February 3rd, 2008, where West introduced Obama as a man who could take us to another level and a man who has a vision that can embrace all of us. Let's say Dr. Cornel West turned on Obama. Folks, that make any sense to you? The real question is, why aren't people saying it the other way? Why aren't they saying, what would make someone who campaigned for you at 65 different stops, who introduced you as a comrade, a friend, a brother, who said you could take us to the next level, what would make a person that dedicated to your campaign then become one of your most outspoken, if not the most outspoken? Now, let's say it. The most outspoken person against you. The most ardent criticizer from the left. Because we know from the right, they say all types of things. Birth certificates, Michelle's a guy, Obama ain't American, Obama's a Muslim, as if that makes him a bad person. But you know. So, from the left, as I was going through this information, it just kept coming back to me. Why aren't they questioning what Obama did to make Cornel West no longer respect him? Politically. Not as a husband or a dad or a guy who likes hip-hop, but as a leader. And if Dr. Cornel West was so upset or so bothered or felt so abandoned by Obama's politics, why don't they feel the same way? I mean, whatever moral implications or immoral implications that Obama actions brought forth, why aren't other people similarly frustrated by them? What I'm trying to say is, if Dr. Cornel West got so upset with Obama's actions in office, why wasn't Michael Eric Dyson upset about them as much? Why wasn't Touré as upset? Why wasn't Melissa Harris Perry as upset? I mean, don't we all want the same things? Black people to finally get from the bottom in this country, to rise up, the most disenfranchised people in America to rise up for poor people, for poor working people that live paycheck to paycheck, poor people that don't have a trust account, poor people that don't have a lot of money in the bank, those poor people that can't afford a $300 emergency, had to skip work because they don't have money to go. You know, those types of people. Those people wondering if they're going to get enough gas in the car to get to work. Those people trying to scrounge up money, counting pennies to catch the bus or the subway. The type of people that might have to jump a turnstile, not because they want to be rebellious, but because they got no other way to get to work. Like those type of people. And if you're on the side of those people, why weren't you criticizing Obama? And I'm not talking about criticizing him once he got home and went to the yacht with Branson. I'm talking about when it mattered, when your criticism could have made him do different things. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Getting past my skis. Let me slow down and take a better look at this. But 65 campaign events is another level of support. That's way up here in the stratosphere for how much appreciation, support, and confidence you have in someone's campaign. Why would a man that would refer to Barack Obama as a friend, a comrade, and a person that could take us to the next level suddenly become someone who criticizes him as a Rockefeller Republican in blackface? Why would he also call him a black mascot of Wall Street, a black puppet of corporate oligarchs? Why would he say that? Now, I know it's really easy to say he said it because he's crazy, he's deranged. He now all of a sudden has no sensibilities, no logic, no reasons. He's just a loose cannon. Or maybe it's because a lot of other people just didn't have the moral fiber, the backbone. See, here's my thing. I believe that West believed in Obama. Some of you watching believed in Obama. And you were upset with the way things turned out. Obama bailing out the banks. Obama not bailing out Main Street. Obama turning his back on working people. Obama posing as a community activist. I remember him saying, well, I was on the streets of Chicago helping the people in Chicago as a community activist. You were on the board of Walmart. When Obama got to office, he did not behave and govern like a community activist. He governed like an executive of Walmart. And he seemed very proud to do it. And some of you were upset about it. I know, I've talked to you in person, through DMs, in emails. How upset would you be if you actually thought you helped him get elected? How upset would you be if you actually spoke to him, actually had a relationship with him, and he told you one thing, and then when the rubber met the road, he did the opposite. He went in back rooms with Wall Street execs. He put a bunch of Clintonites who stabbed black people in the back in the 90s in his staff, in his administration, in his inner circle. And then got in back rooms with Wall Street execs and cut deals with them to help them and help himself. How upset would you be? I think some of you would call him more than just a Republican, a Reagan Republican in blackface. You might call him some other words that I'm trying not to use on this show right now. Maybe what happened with West and Obama is simple. It's sort of like Michael Eric Dyson put it. He said West told him Obama pulled a trick play. He faked left and went right. He pretended to be something he wasn't. Eva Torre wrote this.
Obama has hardly been a traditional liberal. In many ways, he's more of a moderate, or at least someone who draws from ideas on both sides of the aisle. West is correct in calling Obama's fiscal policy conservative-friendly. He's bailed out banks instead of prosecuting bankers, and extended the Bush tax cuts, and in the 2011 debt ceiling talks, offered to make deep cuts to entitlements, especially Medicare. Obama's foreign policy has also often been decidedly conservative. He supported a surge in Afghanistan, escalated drone attacks which have resulted in considerable collateral damage, and ordered the extrajudicial killings of Americans who were at war with America. These are all decisions that would have the left howling if made by President Bush.
It was obvious that he was in support of Obama over Cornel West, but even he had to say this. Isn't that enough for Cornel West to be like, what the hell is Obama doing? And to chastise him and to call him out publicly in order to help change him, to force him to change. Another thing about Toure, he took great exception. Yeah, great exception to Cornel West calling out Obama's fake blackness. I wonder why you felt that way, Toure. I mean, you got a personal thing? You don't understand what he meant when he said that Obama was in blackface? Well, yeah, he was a black guy who used blackness to get elected and then abandoned black people. It's not a question of pigmentation or melanin. It's about his heart. It's his heart with the black people, with poor and working, not elite black people like yourself, Toure, but working class black people. Black people that don't have their college tuition for their kids paid up, sitting in an account somewhere in a trust fund. You know what I'm saying? It's not about do you like Jay-Z and do you know how fried chicken's cooked and how do you season your potato salad. It's about do you love black people enough to lose anything or to risk losing anything to support black people, because that's what you got to be willing to do if you really love black people. That's the type of blackness we're talking about, man. We're not talking about are you black as in color, do you look black? And yes, Toure's going on and on and on and on about how all black people don't have to be the same. And yeah, we know, but we're not talking about what kind of music you listen to. We're not talking about if you like sushi or if you like Brussels sprouts or if you're vegan. We're not talking about that type of stereotypical blackness. We're talking about, do you love black people, man? Are you moved by black people? Not just enough to love them, but to do for them, to work for them, to sacrifice for black people collectively during the struggles that we have in this country for justice. What are you willing to do? And that's what I think he meant. I'm not Dr. Cornel West. I can't say definitively, but that's what I mean when I question blackness. You're not connected to black people. And we all know, typically, that's a thing of trying to grab power for yourself or prestige or money and comfort within white supremacy. That's what it is. But this ain't about me going against Toure's words. Hell, he may even change some of his opinions. I mean, considering we're all talking about at least 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But it seems like many people took exception to it and took it out of context. Dr. Cornel West was not questioning if Barack Obama's father was African. He was questioning if Barack Obama truly loved black people more than himself. And if he saw our progression as important as his own success. And as I read Michael Eric Dyson's article in the New Republic, though it was more understanding than Toure's, he said things that contradicted that did not make as much sense when he said this.
West remained allied with Obama until he took the White House and, in football parlance, faked left and ran right. Obama posed as a progressive and turned out to be counterfeit, West complained in an interview with Salon. He acted as if he was concerned about the issues of serious injustice and inequality, and it turned out that he's just another neoliberal centrist with a smile and with a nice rhetorical flair. It's worth noting that the president's actions were in keeping with the demands of his profession. Like most recent Democratic politicians, Obama nodded in a progressive direction while campaigning, but towed a more centrist line when it came time to govern. What distinguishes West is that he assailed Obama's insufficient leftism and proclaimed it a racial betrayal. I would rather have a white president fundamentally dedicated to eradicating poverty and enhancing the plight of working people than a black president tied to Wall Street and drones, West told The Guardian.
I'm not understanding why Michael Eric Dyson had any criticism at all for Cornel West at this time about Obama when he conceded it was obviously rooted in facts, maybe used different language than you would have used, but the actual criticism itself, very much warranted. I mean, if black people would have all band together and criticized Obama, maybe we could have saved that opportunity and maybe Obama would have risen to the occasion because we forced him to rise to the occasion. And very, very clearly, man, it's very difficult for a black man to call out another black man when he's the first black man to do something. Because we got all these other black folks wondering, hey, we got to live through this black man. We need to be holding him up and supporting him. And it's a thin line you got to walk to do that. But when you do it, as long as you're doing it for black people, you'll be victorious in the end, and history will hold your name up high. That's what I believe. But let me ask you this, all those people that say that Cornel West was wrong, criticizing Obama. If Obama wasn't black, and he would say he was a white guy named Gary, let's say he didn't listen to Jay-Z records, and he didn't do the knock the dirt off my shoulder, the Jay's homage to Jay-Z at a campaign stop. Let's say he didn't do any of that stuff. Do you think he would have beat Hillary Clinton as a freshman senator that no one had ever heard of other than the speech he gave at the DNC? I mean, do you really think he would have became president, the 44th president of the United States, without being, in that moment, that black man, the first black man, and having those tools, rhetorical tools? I mean, a white guy sounding like Obama, I don't think it's the same exact thing. So if you can use blackness to prepare yourself and use it as an instrument in the culture, using the culture, borrow from the culture, use the culture in order to elevate yourself, to fuel your success, is it wrong to call you out when you get successful and you don't use your success the way you should? I mean, Dr. Cornel West said this. He said there's a difference between success and greatness. Success is something you obtain that's amazing. It's a position of power and accomplishment. But greatness is what you do with that power and that accomplishment, how you use it for other people. So Obama was successful, but he wasn't great. I worked as a community activist, and when I heard that Obama did, I felt a certain kinship to him that I may not have felt otherwise, particularly in those early days. Obama extended the Bush tax cuts to help the rich and the biggest corporations. And to a much lesser extent, he lowered tax for poor folks. If he was a Republican doing that, you'd have criticized the hell out of him and had no problem. But because it was Obama doing it, Obama dropped more bombs than any other president up to that point. And if that would have been a Republican, you would have called him a warmonger. But it was Obama, so it was fine. Black Lives Matter started under Obama because so many black people were getting their heads blown off by white cops. If that would have happened under Trump or under Bush, it would have been crazy. But it happened under Obama. And what did he do structurally? What did he really do about it? Not much. Not much at all. He gave one speech where he said Trayvon Martin could have been my son. And then the next week he was talking about, but we need to be calm. Everybody need to calm down. And everybody go home. Don't do nothing. Don't do nothing about it. I have Eric Holder take a look at it. Till then, respect the rule of law. And I'm not saying that was the wrong thing to say, but I'm saying it's the wrong thing to say if you say you were a community activist and if you saw Trayvon as your son earlier. If you don't make those other statements and play into blackness and play into a fondness or a respect or a love, an emotional connection to black folks, it's different when you don't have it. But when you play it up like you do, that becomes a betrayal. That's a betrayal, sir.
Said, I heard what you said about my speech. Why did you say it? I said it because I believed it. It's clear that you're brilliant. It's clear that you've got unbelievable rhetorical talent. But at the same time, I wanted to speak the truth. He said, well, I'm thinking about running for president, and I was wondering whether you would work with me. I said, I've got one question. What is your relation to the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr.? How will your campaign enact the struggle against poverty, militarism, racism, and materialism? Those are the four evils that Martin Luther King Jr. saw right before he was murdered. And he was very honest with me, and he said, Professor West, you know that I'm not as radical as you are, but I do see myself directly connected to the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. I said, that sounds wonderful to me. Let's work together.
That's a betrayal to black people, collectively. That's playing with our emotions. That's what that is. Going forward, we need to be more grown up when it comes to choosing leaders. And if they don't have the ethics, they don't have our vote. We've already had our black president. Okay, technically we did. So now can we move on to the part where We hold everybody accountable and we look at what they're going to do when they get in the office, and if they don't do it, we go after them, and no one's called a sellout for going after the person who got elected to do certain things and they got in office and did opposite. Can now we do that without having a bunch of people call them a sellout and go after them with pitch knives and forks and pitch knives and sticks with fire coming out the top of them, whatever that's called, torches. Yeah, can we do that? Or is that too much to ask? By and large, Michael Eric Dyson seemed like he agreed with everything that Cornel West was saying, but he didn't like the way he was saying it. And Cornel West wasn't as flattering in his criticism. Like, one part, Michael Eric Dyson's like, whenever I criticize Obama, I would start first by patting him on the back and telling him how great he is. Then I'd say how it was a missed opportunity, and then I'd be critical. And maybe Cornel West has jumped right to the criticism because who has time for that? All that butt kissing is unnecessary, sir. We're grown people. We're talking about a powerful man. One of the most powerful men in the world has ever seen is Barack Obama. And you're worried about your words to him? I think you're worried about yourself. I think you're worried about your words to him because you're worried about what that's going to mean for your career, your life, your future. And I get that. But then it goes back to that love thing we were talking about earlier. How much do you really love black people? Do you love black people enough to risk the backlash for standing up for black people? And are we only allowed to stand up for black people when we're talking to white people? Or can we stand up for black people when we're talking to black people, Latino people, Asian people, and white people, and Native American people? Can we stand up against anyone on our own behalf and on behalf of those who are allies or people that support us or also people in the same plight, poor people all across this country? Can we stand up for that? See, I strongly believe that if the Michael Eric Dysons, the Torreys, the Al Sharptons, the Melissa Harris Perrys, all the other people that were critical of Dr. Cornel West at that time, if they would have joined forces with Dr. Cornel West and Tavis Smiley, if they'd have joined forces with Tavis Smiley and Dr. Cornel West, it may have been enough to push Obama to make substantive changes, to stick his neck out. The same way that Trump was cavalier and did unprecedented bad things or self-serving things for his constituents, Obama could have did the same thing for us in hell or high water and threw caution to the wind and been supportive of black people. But he wasn't that way. He didn't have that energy because he wasn't forced to. Trump knew that if his people did not think he was going to the mat for them, they pull their support. But Obama knew he had their support in his hand. He knew he had you. He had you because he had your icons. He had the Oprahs crying. He had the Jay-Z's and the Beyoncés. He had all the people in his back pocket. He had the media behind him. And what black people were going to stand against him and call him out for what he was doing and for what, more importantly, what he wasn't doing for us. How many of us are going to really have the guts? There are people right now who are sitting around talking who did not have the guts, had the guts later. And don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. I respect the hell out of what Cornel West did calling out Obama. He called out Obama when Obama was Obama. You can't even call out Trump when Trump ain't even Trump anymore. He not even in office and you can't call him out because you're afraid. Some of them are still afraid to talk against Obama when the words and legacies already painted. When it's all done, it's the numbers are there. You just read them. Black people at their lowest economically, more so than they've been in the last 50 years under Obama. The housing crisis broke us, and he didn't send a single solitary predatory lender to jail. Not one. Zero. No. We ain't gonna talk about reparations. We couldn't get this guy to give us a public option in the healthcare plan. Cornel West said, hey, don't punt on second down. Push it as far as you can go. And you criticize them for calling this guy out the most powerful man in the world as if his words, Cornel West's words, were damaging to him? Nah. You can't respect Obama for his rhetorical abilities, his leadership capacity, the dignity that he possessed in office, the shining example, the symbolism, the beautiful family, all of that. You can praise that all, and you can't take anything from it. But to deny the missed opportunity, even to this day, a lot of them deny because they know they're faulty. They know they're culpable. They know they're part of it. And they denying the failure also exempts them from the ridicule themselves because they help create that monster. They help empower the lack of transparency and the lack of fulfilling of the promises he was making. So it's really self-serving for them not to criticize Obama, because criticizing him would be criticizing themselves. But see, I'm doing this video right here, we're doing this not just for historical purposes. We're doing it for learning going forward, because we cannot have people in power that we're afraid to criticize. We cannot have people being our thought leaders who are afraid to criticize Obama, but you got all the smoke for Trump, but none of the smoke for Biden. None of the tough critiques for Biden. Y'all bastards can't even criticize Biden. You still criticizing Trump when he out of office, in fear he could come back and beat Biden. Meanwhile, Biden gets a free ride. And you call that being reasonable, being logical? I call it cowardice. Dr. West pushed Obama, not just out of love for Obama, but out of love for us, black people. All of black people and all of America and all poor and working people too. He pushed him for us. It wasn't self-serving. How is it benefiting him to lose opportunities? Anybody with a critical mind can see that Dr. Cornel West suffered politically, he suffered economically, his career suffered from pushing Obama. How can you then say it was self-serving if it did nothing but cost him? Now we got the guy who wrote the shitty crime bills and put his fingerprints on every piece of tough law and order legislation to come out of Congress in the last 50 years and was proud of it. That's your president. And we got Cornel West running against him. You act like this is a hard choice, and you're questioning if Cornel West did the right thing to run against the guy. That's what they're doing, folks. Black America, do you hear this? We have right now the president of the United States had his fingers, his fingerprints on every piece of tough law and order, tough on crime legislation that crossed the American people in the last 50 years. He had his fingerprints on. He was either the architect or co-architect of every piece, Johnson. And people don't want to criticize him. Those people not criticizing want jobs working for them. Those people not criticizing are worried about their careers, worried about their own ambitions, not worried about us. Biden showed who he was a long time ago.
I would do everything I can to shore up that vote as early as possible. We cannot wait until the third-party campaign of Cornel West picks up steam, or Tim Scott's campaign for president picks up steam, or some other right candidate who can tear off black voters away from the Democratic Party.
He said, tore away. We're tore away. As if we're joined by the hips. Black Americans are not possessions of the Democratic Party. They don't own us. For us to go somewhere else and vote for another party, whether it be Green or the Republicans or the No Labels or whoever it is, that would not be tearing us away. That would be us choosing to go another way. The Democratic Party did not nurse Black America. They just manipulated some of us into thinking they did. Dr. West may not be perfect, but he stood up against Obama when Obama was Obama. He's a man of integrity. He's a man of ethics. He's a man of loyalty, but not to the point where he's betraying those that he's also loyal to. Not a man of perfection. That perfect man doesn't exist. Or woman. Perfect woman doesn't exist either. But Dr. West is the best opportunity for us to tear America back from the brink of destruction. If a man works 60 hours a week providing for his family, always remembers his wife's birthdays, takes her out for dinners, does special things for her, gives his all for her and the children, would lay down his life for them, uses every bit of what he has to provide the best life possible for them. And for some reason, he decides that this is not something he can do anymore. The question should not be, hey, what did he do wrong? Why he don't want to do it anymore? What's wrong with him? The question should be, hey, why did he stop? What'd you do to make him stop loving you? For more of my coverage of Dr. Cornel West and his candidacy, and for my coverage of the Democratic Party acting crazy, subscribe to this channel. For access to bonus coverage, become a member of the Tim Black Show on Patreon. Like I always say, don't you let nobody take your cornbread. And my new one, you want to make change? You tired of the BS? Say it with your West. Dr. West.
Extra innings are bonus segments from Tim Black's Black Table Show with the Blacks. That's Tim Black and the amazing Mrs. Black. For early access to extra innings, become a paid member of the Tim Black Show at jointimblack.com. Ain't nothing like the real thing. Baby, join today. See you there, Wolfpack.